In today's show, we've made it through 1 week of December, and the Trailblazers' depth is truly getting tested. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. Listen to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. In today's show, we are talking... It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we are talking about two games over the weekend. On Friday night, the Blazers go into Detroit and dang near pull off an impressive win on the road against a good Pistons team, but just couldn't hang on in the final 3.5 minutes. And then on Sunday, they even more shorthanded. They were shorthanded on Friday. They got even more shorthanded by the time they got to Sunday. They wrap up a road trip in Memphis and just kind of get throttled. They vaguely made it a game, but mostly got beat down because they just don't have enough NBA caliber bodies to play a highly competitive basketball game for 48 minutes. Talk about those two games. I want to talk about the Blazers' depth getting tested. I think this is sort of just part of the NBA and how it works. I think you're kind of seeing what happens if you don't pass that test right now for the Trailblazers. We'll talk a little about Young Hansen, who made his first NBA start on Sunday evening, and we'll talk about some whistles, because boy, were there a lot of them. If you watched the basketball games this weekend, if you enjoyed whistles, you got them a little bit. This isn't going to be ref whining, but we do need to talk. It's like the refs were part of the game a little bit in both of these games. We'll get into all of that. Let's do what we do, though. Fastest recap in the West for both games. We'll start Friday, then we'll go to Sunday. A little chronological order for you. Blazers lose in Detroit 122-116. They're down 2 after 1. They're down 7 at halftime, but they rally in the third quarter. They hold the Pistons to 19 points. They took a 1-point lead into the fourth quarter, but this game is ugly already. Toumani Camara has just been dealing with foul trouble since basically the opening 100 seconds, and it hasn't slowed up for him. And at the 9:30 mark of the fourth quarter, he fouls out. Couple that with straight up Deni Avdija just not looking physically like himself in the fourth quarter of this game. He's just straight up not moving around well. And yet, the Blazers, with no Toumani Camara for the final 9.5 minutes because he's fouled out, and a pretty obviously hobbled Deni Avdija, are in this game with a straight up very good Pistons team. The Pistons could make the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think that's an exaggeration. I think that's a very reasonable outcome for this Pistons group. They're that good. They're really good on defense. They've got they're excellent in close games. They have a great fourth quarter record, a great clutch game record, and a good fourth quarter offense. They can kind of roll with their guy, and they really defend, their guy being Cade Cunningham. Blazers are right there. And then Sidi Sissoko fouls out with 6.5 minutes left. But the Blazers just will not go away. Shaedon Sharpe gets a steal and a dunk. Then Rob Williams has a great block at the rim, blocking Tobias Harris. They run out, and Jeremy Grant gets fouled on a 3 in the corner. It's going to be an and one. They review it. It's a flagrant, which is pretty hilarious because Jeremy Grant was called for a flop for doing the exact same thing a couple possessions earlier, and he was awarded the second flopping penalty of anyone all season long, according to the Blazers broadcast. But this time, literally the exact same thing. Jeremy Grant is going to take 3-pointers and fall down. That's what he does. He's really good at drawing fouls on threes because he's going to shoot them and fall over. But this one, they crowd his landing zone. They call a flagrant. He hits the 3. They add the free throw off the flagrant. They get the ball back. Deni Avdija takes a little mid-range pull-up in the paint, and all of a sudden, the Blazers are up 6 with 3.5 to go. They've ripped off an 11-0 run. It's going to get rough in the final, 210 seconds. It's 204. Final 204 seconds of this game. Shaedon Sharpe's called for foul. It's legit. They miss a jumper on the other end. Rob Williams is called for a foul. phantom foul. Did not foul Cade Cunningham. Didn't foul him. He jumps in the air and he lands, and Cunningham kind of flops. And Rob didn't complain very much live, but when they showed the replay, he didn't foul him. Cade Cunningham had 4 free throws in 2 possessions. One legit foul, one totally bogus one. Then Denny Avdia makes a extremely tough, didn't have anywhere to go, falling down mid-range jumper to push the lead back to 3. And Duncan Robinson hits a movement 3 from the right wing and ties the game at 110. It's now a tie game. The Blazers are trying to inbound the ball, and Asar Thompson knocks the ball away and almost gets a steal that would have given the Pistons the lead back. The Blazers had some inbounding trouble in the first half where no one came back to help Denny. They got a 5-second call. They're just discombobulated. They're not playing sharp in these moments, particularly when Denny is taking the ball out of bounds. Somebody's got to come back and get it. Typically that has been Tumani Kamara, but he has fouled out. He hasn't been playing the game for 9 minutes. Someone else has to take that responsibility. You have to play basketball. Players play. You have to play basketball. So they call a timeout. They say, okay, what are we doing? Relax. Calm down, everybody. So they get a sideline out of bounds in a tie game with 2.5 minutes left, and Chris Murray just throws the ball away. I think it was a problem because Shaedon Sharpe didn't cut hard enough to the ball. He kind of half cut and stopped his cut, and Chris Murray just threw a ball to nowhere. They just threw it to nowhere. Pistons pick up the loose ball, the throw to nowhere. Cade Cunningham gets a layup. All of a sudden, they're up 2. All that good work the Blazers did to build a 6-point lead. We're now a minute later from 3:24 to the 2:22 mark. They are now down 2. Yikes. Then the following possession, the Blazers go the other way. They actually they go the other way, and Chris Murray's called for a moving screen. He moved. He was being guarded by Duncan Robinson, and he kind of put both hands on Robinson and tried to push him into Cade Cunningham to make it happen. They don't always call that foul, but that's a foul. And he fouled him, and they called it, and Pistons get the ball back. Duncan Robinson hits a really tough movement 3. He's a good shooter on the move, good shooter going to his right, I guess, because that one looks really good, and the other one who's also moving to his right. Now the Pistons are up 5. The Blazers get this ball now about a minute 40 left when they get the ball back, and on this particular possession, Denny Avdia doesn't get a touch. I don't love that. They tried. He kind of tried to back cut, and Shaedon Sharpe didn't see him. That's not a pass that Shaedon Sharpe typically makes. He does not throw a lot of back cut passes from the top of the key to guys cutting down the rim. He's not a bad passer necessarily, but he's not a high level passer. He doesn't make those high level reads super comfortably. He didn't see him. He swings at Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant takes a wing 3. A shot Jeremy Grant can make. I don't think it's the worst possession ever if it's Shaedon Sharpe and Jeremy Grant touching the ball. But in that moment, down 5, as good as Denny had been in this game, him not touching the ball was notable in that possession. They don't score, and then the Blazers commit an off-ball foul. Chris Murray commits a foul, kind of running over Duncan Robinson. Totally the correct call. And the Robinson gets a couple free throws, and all of a sudden the Pistons are up 7. It's a 15-2 Pistons run in a minute and 10 seconds. 70 seconds. Yikes. Send him to the free throw line. He scored when the clock stopped, obviously, but now you're down 7. You kind of need a miracle. And they don't get it. Not only do they not get a miracle, they score, and they get a tough call. 44 seconds left. Denny Avdia strips Ron Holland, and they called a foul. It was not a foul. I would think in the final 3 minutes, Rob Williams committed a foul that just didn't exist, and Denny Avdia committed a foul that just didn't exist. But Holland hits the first free throw, misses the second, but on the miss, Rob Williams steps out of bounds, and the Pistons get the ball back. So now you're down 6 with 35 seconds left, and you have one timeout. You just need a miracle. Blazers don't get a miracle, and they lose 122-116. I went pretty granular through those final 3 minutes because I'll say this, and I'll talk about this at the end of the show. This game was disgusting. The fourth quarter was so gross. Blazers took 35 free throws in this game. The Pistons took 48. It was pretty much even in free throws until the fourth quarter, and I think some of this is just like the Blazers playing somewhat desperate and trying to get back into it, but they took 6 free throws in the fourth quarter. The Pistons took 19. The notably bad calls were, I think, the Rob Williams call and the Denny call. There was some other touch stuff, like the foul that Tumani fouled out on. It's not great. I thought that was a weak call, but sometimes you get that. But and I'll say this here, and then we'll go to the other game. It's like I don't think the Blazers lost because of the fouls, because of the refs. Like I wouldn't blame them, but I will say like when you turn the ball over with 2 minutes left, commit a moving screen, have a one pass possession that ends with a long 3-pointer that no one touches the paint or drives inside the wing. That's 3 straight possessions. Turnover on the sidelines, out of bound, moving screen turnover, a 3-pointer, one pass possession, 3-pointer when nobody drives to the paint and like draws an advantage and the ball moves, right? You kind of leave yourself more vulnerable to bad reffing. When you play poorly, you need more. You are more vulnerable to bad reffing. I think that's more what happened in this game. More on the. I'll talk a little more about the refs later in the program. I think they were a story, but not the story, and certainly not the reason for the loss. I will not follow you down that path necessarily, but certainly undeniable. After the game, Thiago Splitter declined to talk about it. The Blazers had 3 dudes foul out in this game. Tumani fouls out. C.D. Sissoko fouls out in 22 minutes, and Chris Murray ends up fouling out on that Duncan Robinson play. And in this particular game, it's like Denny has 35, 9 points, 9 boards, 7 assists. Balling, right? Jeremy Grant, 29. Shaedon Sharpe, not a particularly efficient night because he just can't make threes, but shot really well inside the arc, 9 of 16, and finished with 28 points. Everyone else on the Blazers combined to score 24. Chris Murray was scoreless in almost 28 minutes. Caleb Love scoreless in his 12 minutes. Ryan Rupert didn't play very much, scoreless without a field goal attempt. Right? They just didn't get enough help. Right? This game was more about the Blazers' depth, and I want to talk about that later, than it was about refereeing. This is just you don't have enough dudes who can help. I thought Rob Williams was awesome in this game. He only had 8 points, but 14 boards. He blocked 5 shots. He was hooping, and then he got sick and didn't play on Sunday. Let's talk about Sunday's game in the second segment. I think that's what we call these things. In the second segment, join me there, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again, channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money, trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood Strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. All right. Before we get into the Grizzlies game, I want to tell you about the Everydayers Club. Thanks for making this show your first listen, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live by the mantra, your team every day. The Everydayers Club helps you take it up a level. You get an ad-free version of the audio feed for this podcast, and you can join the Everydayer Club today, and you can get Locked On Blazers with no interruptions, plus access to the members-only Discord server where you can chat with me and other Locked On hosts and more. It's all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonblazers.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. Okay, the Blazers played a game on Friday, and then they wrapped up a road trip on Sunday. They're heading home from Memphis now, and then they're going to head back out. So spend a couple days in Portland, head back out for a one-off in New Orleans, but not part of the same trip, technically. This trip wraps up at 1-3. Blazers lose to the Grizzlies 119-96. Donovan Clingan, who did not play in that Pistons game, does not play in the Memphis game either. He's out with a left lower leg contusion. He's maybe not moving around great. Rob Williams, who did play and played well on Friday, doesn't play. He's out with an illness. Stinks, but it's that time of year. Folks get sick. So, young Hansen, your boy, Hansen, gets the start. His first ever NBA start alongside Jeremy Grant, Tumani Camara, Denny Avdia, and C.D. Sissoko, who is now entrenched in the starting lineup as a two-way player. And boy, did things go poorly early for your Trailblazers. Trailblazers money 26 in the first quarter. They had 8 turnovers. I thought Hanson's first shift was really brutal. He played about 4 minutes to begin the game, picked a couple fouls, and they're just going after him. Zach Edey was just saying, "Give me the ball." He scored in the post, but I think moreover they just like ran actions at him, and I thought his just like help defense and defensive positioning and awareness was just like it was just tough for Hanson. Right? I thought he settled down and played a much better second half, but I thought that first shift was like, yeah. Yeah. Maybe not for him. But I mean, it happens. He's young and he's a developing player. I don't think this is necessarily a surprise, but the Blazers down 20 after one, down 20 at halftime, 66-46. Grizzlies are playing without some of their dudes, right? Like Ty Jerome isn't playing. He's been out for an extended period. Ja Morant, although he was maybe going to come back this weekend, was not in this game, but so they're playing Vince Williams Jr. at point guard and Cedric Coward, who the Blazers never had an opportunity to draft. Don't look it up. But with Zach Edey back and Jaren Jackson Jr. over the last 2 weeks, the Grizzlies have looked like a much better basketball team. There was a time this year where they looked horrendous. Over the last 2 weeks, they're just like a normal, like quality, competitive, maybe mediocre, but like competitive basketball team, right? They're not bad anymore. They were bad at the beginning of the year. They're not bad anymore. But you're down 66-46, and you're just like, oh, you might not have enough dudes. But the Blazers opened the second half on a 19-3 run, cut it to 4 in the third quarter. And then the Grizzlies respond. They push it to as many as 17 before the quarter ends and go into the fourth up 92-78. Blazers briefly flirted with making this a game. They cut it to 8 with about 10 and a half minutes left in the quarter, but they never truly threatened after that. Grizzlies scored 6 straight after the Blazers cut it to single digits, and Portland would never get it back to single digits for the remainder of the game, and finally ended up giving up entirely and emptying the bench with 3.5 minutes left, and we got 3 full minutes of garbage time. Blazers lose 96-119. That's your fastest recap in the West. That one truly fast. I think 2 things here. One, some of this is like Denny Avdia has raised his own standards a lot, but I think he was kind of bad in this game. He was bad, and the box score is like he had 17 points, 7 boards, 7 assists, 3 steals, and a block. 17, 7, 7, 3, and 1. And you think he was bad? I do. And that's probably because he's been flirting with the 30-point triple-double for 10 straight days, 5 straight games. Like, he's just been incredible. So like my expectations over, but I thought it was a bad Denny game. I thought it was a bad Denny game. I thought it was a bad Shaedon Sharpe game too. He turned the ball over a lot, and I thought his handle was really loose, and they just needed more from him in this game, and Sharpe didn't have much. Like, he only ended up playing 27 minutes because they waved the white flag, and for the final 3 minutes, he would have got up to his sort of more typical 30, but like, you didn't feel his presence. He made some threes, but you didn't really feel his presence. Like, he had a sick reverse, but like, the sick reverse is not exactly, that's only one very small portion of the basketball game. Jeremy Grant had 21, but 5 of 16 shooting. Like, nobody played particularly well. Hanson finished with 4 points and 5 boards, 2 assists, had committed 5 fouls in 19 minutes. I thought he was really, really bad in the first half. Like, he's just like, oh, this is not an NBA player. And then I thought he settled into being kind of a normal bad in the second half. Like, I don't think he was like, I don't think he was like a positive. I would certainly think he looked pretty far away, but he was much better comparatively from one half to another. Duapreath was fine, came in and hit 3 threes, but like, he just cannot defend, and they were getting crushed on the glass by Jock Landale in his minutes. Caleb Love, pretty anonymous 4-point game. Chris Murray had 2 points. Chris Murray had a brutal weekend. He played 49 and a half minutes, committed 10 fouls, and attempted 3 field goals. Yikes. He was 1 of 1 against the Grizzlies. He was 0 of 2 against the Pistons. He fouled out of the Pistons game. He had 4 fouls in 22 minutes against the Grizzlies, he had a tough weekend. Chris Murray had a tough weekend, and that's kind of where we're at. And this is how I feel about this team. Injuries are part of the NBA. Every team's gonna get beat up. Some teams have better injury luck, some teams have worse injury luck. It's obviously like a continuum. The Blazers are probably on the bad end, right? Like, they're one of the teams that has worse injury luck than others. Although they're not missing the most games of any team in the league, they're near the top, right? They're in the top third of games lost to injury this season, according to SpotTrack's numbers. even like that includes Damian Lillard missing time. But even if you don't include that, they're like, above average number of injuries across the league. And tonight specifically, it kind of shows up. No point guards, no NBA caliber centers. Like, Do Not Breathe's awesome. As a human that I always root for, Young Hanson's just not ready to play in the NBA. He's just straight up not ready to play in the NBA. Maybe he will be one day, and you'll say like, yeah, remember how far he's come or whatever. But like, he's just he's not ready to be a positive NBA contributor right now. Intriguing player and a fun personality, but like not an NBA center. Dup's not an NBA center. You're missing Klingon. You're missing Rob Williams. You don't have any point guards because they're all hurt too. This is just like what the Blazers are experiencing right now is just like Peter Principle. The idea that you just always get promoted one step above your capabilities. And I feel like that's what is kind of happening to almost every player on the roster. It's like, yeah, you're asking CD Sissoko to do too much. And sometimes CD has like these special tools, but when you ask him to be like NBA starter, it's like, yeah, he feels somewhat limited, but like he's big and he defends and he can dribble and pass. And it's like interesting. If he was playing a smaller, more dialed in role, maybe he'd be really interesting. I think Caleb Love is getting a little bit Peter Principled, and these are two-way guys, right? But I would say even Chris Murray is like on a more competitive team, even a healthier version of this particular Trailblazers team, which is something like at best like a team that fights to be above 500 if everything breaks right? Like that's I think a fairly rosy read on their outcome. Not what I thought they would be this year, but sure. Like say this is like if they're fully healthy, like a 43 win team. Chris probably doesn't play every night, right? He just doesn't play every night. They would lean to Matisse Thybulle. They would lean into Drew Holiday and Scoot Anderson and even Blake Wesley, and they would steal some forward minutes with Tumani and Jeremy and Denny rotating in those spots and play some 3-guard lineups, et cetera, right? Like. Peter Principle. Everyone's kind of outside of where they, getting promoted beyond their capabilities. I kind of feel the same way about Denny. Although he's been exceptional. I think the best version of Denny Avdia would do a little bit less. I think early in the year, particularly, that Shaedon Sharpe succumbed to this, where he was just like, I'm going to shoot a lot. And he certainly still does that. But it's like he was forcing it too much because he realized how much was on his, it was like sort of they needed from him offensively. And they do need a lot from him offensively. He does need to shoot. And he can create his shots a lot better than a lot of other players who play, right? But this is the Peter Principle. And I think this is the depth getting tested for the Blazers. It is, and they're quite frankly failing the test, but like in a way that is very normal for teams to fail the test. Not every team is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not every team is sort of these magic groups that can just carry on with missing a whole chunk of their roster. That isn't to say like the Blazers don't need these wins and they're not going to if they want to make the some sort of postseason push, you're going to want these back at some point. Say, hey, we would love to have these games, to win these games, but like I just think I thought they played really, really stinking well on Friday and just didn't have it for about a minute. They played really poorly for about a minute and 10 seconds, and it caught up with them. And then they just they came out with just like not enough quality to be really competitive in this game. It showed up right away. They made a brief push to get close with the starting group in there at the beginning. And then, Memphis gets to put their bench in that's better than the Blazers bench, and the lead swells back up. And all of a sudden you're down double digits and you're chasing it. Let's talk a little bit more about depth. And I want to talk about the refs because unfortunately, a story in both of these games. Join me in the third segment and we will do just that. First, though, I want to tell you about FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. You better believe it. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting in real time with FanDuel. You can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, an offensive line starts mauling fools, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up and as the action unfolds, and you can bet next touchdown score, drive results, totals, and more. So, if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, still a past first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers. So, like, on the Blazers, sort of the note on depth, I think in some ways, I was pretty, if you're an everyday listener, and if you are, make sure you subscribe to the Everyday Clubs, locked on blazers.supercast.com. But like, I was probably harsher than many on the idea that the Blazers were like super deep this year. I thought they were interesting. I thought they had some interesting players, but I was never really waving that flag that this team had a great deal of depth they were going to be able to exploit. But they certainly had a lot more tools at one point this year than they do now, right? Like, and I think that's, so I think some of it is like maybe a sobering reality of the roster, right? It's like Ryan Rupert, not a contributor in a way that can help. Chris Murray, just like, if you put him in a really small role, could be helpful, but like he just doesn't have enough juice on offense to do things that can be really helpful. It is what it is. So like, when, and I think honestly, because they've asked Denny to do so much on offense and he has done it very, very well, his defense has slipped a little bit because it's just like, he doesn't have enough juice, right? It's like, you just can't play that many minutes at that level. And it's like, if you need to do everything on offense, and Denny has, again, flirting with a 30-point triple-double for like 10 days. And then his quote-unquote bad game, the game where I thought he played poorly against the Grizzlies, and I do think he played poorly. I'm not backing down from that take. I thought he had a bad game. 17, 7, and 7. It's like, well, he almost had another 20-point triple-double, Mike. Are you sure? I am. The dude, it's the level that he can get to, and he just wasn't there today. But part of the reason I think Avdija wasn't there is he was frustrated. And he might not be right. Like, he didn't look as physically limited as he did against Detroit, where he was just kind of running around and like kind of just like limping on his left leg. I thought he didn't look as slow in the Memphis game in a way that he kind of looked beat up in that Pistons game. But I thought he just I thought he looked frustrated. I thought he moped a lot after bad calls. And this was a game where the refs were just, so I thought the Pistons game had too many fouls. But I think that's more symptomatic of the league right now. There's just too many fouls in the NBA, like, period. The fouls are way up. Free throws are way up from a year ago. It's become a trend across the league year over year in a way that's just like not good basketball. It's just like not quality viewing experience. Certainly the fourth quarter was frustrating from a Blazers perspective just because the other team marched to the free throw line. Like I said, I thought there were two really bogus calls. One inside about 3 minutes with Rob Williams just like did not commit a foul, and another inside a minute with Denny Avdija committed a foul. Those change the game. I don't think they guarantee a Blazers win, but they certainly give you, I don't know, a better chance of hanging on. But I think the Blazers lost that particular game because of a minute of just bad basketball. And then you make yourself more vulnerable to refereeing by having a minute of just like straight up really bad basketball. The Grizzlies game, like, let me be. This was a lesson I learned as a young child. I was probably like 11 or 12, playing in the summertime basketball league, and we got throttled by some team. Lost by 24. I was about the same size when I was that. So I played power forward at that age, and I was complaining to my dad, like, oh, and he's like, "You lost by 24. The refs didn't beat you by 24." And that's how I feel about all blowouts. It's a lesson I learned as a young man. Shout out to my dad for teaching me a great lesson. He probably does not remember that. Dad, if you're listening, text me if you remember that story. I bet you don't. But like it sticks with me. In a blowout, you don't get to complain about the refs. The Blazers didn't lose to the Grizzlies because of the refs, but that game was poorly officiated. My goodness. Just kind of like a grossly called game, like weird foul calls, late whistles. Sometimes you can be really physical. Sometimes you can't. Like, ask the Grizzlies. They were heated, and Zach Edey fouled out in 22 minutes. There was a play where Young Hansen got hit in the face. I don't think it was a foul when he got hit in the face. Did he get hit in the face? Absolutely. But I think from my eyes, I watched the replay about 3 times. I think I wouldn't have been surprised if they had called that, but I kind of think Zach Edey's in a legal guarding position, and Young Hunson kind of just like pivots into him. But more experienced players can pivot their face into an elbow and get that call 10 million times, and I would be mad about it in the other direction. I'd be like, that's annoying. But like, I didn't necessarily think that was like an egregious foul call. If they'd called it, I wouldn't have been mad the other way. I thought that was borderline. But Hunson got clubbed in the face and went down and stayed down, and they didn't blow the play dead. And I think by rule you don't blow the play dead there. I remember a classic Carmelo Anthony moment where he got hit in the face and stayed down for two full back and forth possessions. Like maybe he was on the court for like almost a full minute of gameplay. You don't like the coach can call a timeout. They don't. Sometimes they call it dead, but if you're not in the way, and they often do not. But like then Tiago Splitter had to use his final timeout. They spent the final 9 minutes without a timeout. Splitter is like, it's probably one of the reasons why he ended up just saying like punting on the games. They just have any way to get stops, or like have a stoppage and get the guys rest. He gets a tech getting super pissed. Like he was mad. There was a play where Denny Avdia like pretty clearly intentionally tripped Cedric Coward. They didn't call anything in the moment and ended up being a dunk. And then the Grizzlies were super mad about that. It's just like I don't think the refs had any impact on that game, but like I would be lying if I didn't say I watched that game and said, wow, they didn't have much control of this one. Kind of gross. And like, if you know me, you know that I'm not, I think whining about the officials is the most boring way to talk about the NBA, but I kind of think this one was just like hey, everyone left unhappy. And that's like not a good feeling. And I think like this weekend, it wasn't about refereeing, but it also was like not aesthetically pleasing basketball. And it wasn't aesthetically pleasing basketball on Friday because there were just a cajillion free throws, a free throw parade in the fourth quarter. Most of them, the majority of them legit, but just so many free throws. That is what's happening in the league right now. And then just like just kind of a poorly executed basketball game by the officials. A younger crew, like not your super experienced crew, but like Jason Goble, get it together, buddy. That's me calling out a ref by name. No, I'm that's a joke. Like I think the worst part of like being like I like the NBA a lot. It's my favorite professional league. It's my favorite sport. Yada yada yada. But like, it's not good when both teams leave the arena and are like, this game was officiated by morons. And I felt like that was kind of what Sunday's game was like. It was just like, hey, everyone did bad here. It didn't really impact the outcome of the game, but it was poorly managed all the way around. I think the real story of the weekend is the Blazers' depth has proven to be not strong enough to hold up, and they just need their dudes back. Matisse Thybulle's back traveling on with these guys. I think that's probably a pretty good sign. It is. We are at the 2-week mark for Scoot Henderson since they said he'd be reevaluated in 2 to 4 weeks. I'm going to go ahead and guess that's the long end for him. Drew Holiday has passed the 2-week mark officially last Friday of when he was going to be 1 to 2 weeks before he'd be reevaluated. I would put him at just an indefinite. I can't imagine the Blazers give us an update unless he's very close to returning. He may just remember when we were supposed to hear back from Matisse Thybulle after 6 weeks and it took 3 months. Like the Blazers might let us go. We might just not know about it, and they just won't give an update. So you got to hope that Matisse comes back and Drew comes back in the nearish future. I think Scoot is more like a Christmas-ish type of thing. Is more realistic for when he could return, probably on that end. So like their depth is going to continue to be tested. They got to get Donovan Clingan back. I thought Rob was playing well when he played. It's just that'll be it for them. Much more than just like bad officiating. They need to actually have good basketball players on the court. That's going to be their path forward. When they have had good basketball players on the court, they've at least been largely competitive. And I thought they were largely competitive Friday. And then they just like ran out of dudes and were summarily beat up on Sunday evening in Memphis. That's going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow's show is going to be a mailbag episode. I kind of had the questions dialed, to be quite honest, but if you have one, email me, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. And then Wednesday's program, Travis Demers from Blazers play-by-play radio announcer is going to join the show. So do not miss that one. What's what we do? Fun shows this week. 5 of them, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Be sure to go sign up for the Everydayer Club. There's a link for it in the episode description. You get an ad-free audio feed so you can listen to the show without ads. You get access to the Discord server to chat with your fellow listeners and me in a private members-only Discord server. Plus, there's some access to some national shows that you can't get anywhere else. $5 a month, $50 a year. Check it out. LockedOnBlazers.supercast.com, and the link is in the episode description. However you are listening to this one, I appreciate you listening. Tell your friends about the podcast. Tell your friends about the Everydayer Club. I will talk to you soon.